It was my first weekend at the GSB. A new friend asked if I would be at the social that night. Without much thought, I looked at her and said, "I keep Sabbath. I'll catch you at the next one." She paused, leaned in, and lowered her voice. "You're of faith?" she said. "Me too. I'm Mormon. I keep Sabbath on Sundays." I looked at her and said, "Why are we whispering?" We laughed and have become great friends since. But that moment stuck with me, not because it was dramatic, but because it was ordinary. Two friends discovering something meaningful in common and immediately lowering their voices as if it had crossed into forbidden territory. Have you ever whispered about something that's so fundamental to your identity? What topic makes you feel like you crossed into forbidden territory and so wish you could share more? I practice faith every day. When I mumble a blessing over my coffee, when I step out of a meeting to pray the afternoon service, and when I treat others by the golden rule, the way I want to be treated. I also practice faith on weekends. Sabbath, or Shabbat, is a day free of distraction from technology and work. It may look like a vacation day on my calendar, but it's actually a day of structured worship and family. Faith informs how I show up, when I am available, and what boundaries I set around my commitments at work. So why are we whispering? Because many of us, believers and non-believers, simply don't know how to talk about faith at work. It feels like an invasion of privacy or straight out awkward. Modern workplaces embrace authenticity and inclusion. We invite people to bring so much of themselves to work, their gender identities, their wellness journeys, and even their pets. But there's one unspoken rule. As long as it doesn't make anyone feel uncomfortable. And faith often crosses that invisible line and becomes the one identity that's left at the door. Somewhere along the way, the norm developed that faith is different, it's riskier, it's better kept quiet. It became the part of us that we don't mention, maybe because it feels too loaded to address. And before I go any further, I want to acknowledge that faith is loaded. It has been the cause of much human hardship in our history and today. Especially in professional environments where trust and collaboration matter most, it makes sense to be cautious. Leaving faith at the door may be to maintain a cordial workplace, not to silence individuals. Here is the shocking truth. Workplaces already contain believers, non-believers, and everyone in between. How many adults in the US do you think identify as religious? 10%? 20%? Okay, maybe 30%? 70% of adults in the US self-identify as religious. Half of them pray daily, and a third of them attend a communal religious service at least once a month. And the US looks quite secular compared to other countries where over 90% of adults self-identify as religious. Now, ever wondered who walks into those churches that line every other block of Palo Alto? Ever thought, are these historical landmarks or secretly startup workspaces? There are people praying in there, and we are all very good at pretending no one walks in and silencing ourselves when we find out who does. I am here to challenge the assumption that faith does not belong at work. Faith is clearly a part of so many of our lives. For some, it's impossible to hide their faith, be it under a sari, a hijab, or a kippah. For others with less outward symbols, it becomes something more private. And for those of us who are not of faith, workplace silence may create blind spots. It's not about faith at work. It's about unspoken faith at work. We live in an interconnected world where business is the dominant global language. It allows us to collaborate across countries and industries and belief systems, even when our interactions are shaped by traditions much older than anyone in this room. Be it religious, philosophical, or communal, our traditions shape our values and the rhythms beneath our calendars. Differences across these global traditions surface in how we approach time, authority, and action. But when met with sensitivity instead of silence, they can actually strengthen workplaces instead of pull them apart. Take, for example, a classmate of mine, a venture capitalist shaped by the Protestant work ethic of discipline and measurable performance. Her investment style in US companies was fast and analytical and data-driven. But when she pivoted to invest in Japanese companies with Shinto-influenced norms of patience, humility, and harmony, let's just say her US style did not work very well. In Japan, trust is built over years through consistency and a respect for authority, not through quick transactions. After an honest conversation with her Japanese colleague, my classmate stopped interpreting the deliberate pace as hesitation and instead started searching for meaning. Talking openly about the religious and cultural differences unlocked real potential. It allowed them to collaborate further and unlocked real business opportunities that would have otherwise been impossible. You may remember a time where your workplace environment was enhanced by another's openness to share a religious practice or family tradition. Maybe a colleague who doesn't celebrate Christmas offered to work that day so you could be home with your family. Or maybe a Buddhist teammate invited you to share in his Lunar New Year celebration. How did those invitations impact your workplace environment? How did they foster deeper connections? Well, let's look at what happens when they remain unspoken. A Catholic observing Lent decides to skip the Friday barbecue lunch, and her commitment to her team was silently judged. Or a Hindu staffed on a huge work sprint missed her family Diwali celebration, and no one knew what she gave up for work. Or a Muslim observing Ramadan fell asleep in an afternoon meeting, silent that his day began at 4 a.m. and he hadn't eaten since sunrise. Some feel uncomfortable asking for time off, but are quietly frustrated when work encroaches on these sacred spaces. Others harbor resentment, but don't give others the opportunity to explain why these moments really matter. I have learned that silence creates confusion, when conversation could create clarity. It is not about sharing my belief or even developing a belief system of your own. And it's definitely not about memorizing an encyclopedia of holidays and traditions that you don't celebrate. There are far too many days and way too many details. Instead, I invite you to think about how you can show up with a little more sensitivity, bring a little more curiosity, and demonstrate openness and respect when it comes to faith at work. Because even if you don't practice religion, at 70%, odds are you've already encountered someone on your team who does. My hope is that what is sacred never needs to be whispered. Thank you.